Hi, everybody, and thank you, Sierra. Hopefully, everybody's having a good time. Everybody's learning a lot. And thank you for coming to Advanced Installation Drawings with us. My name is Cesar Guevara, and I'm just going to teach you guys some tips and tricks on how I tend to do my installation drawings and how I save up some settings to achieve that goal. Without further ado, introduction. Just being able to use the new viewports and filters so we can give our team some great install drawings so we can have a great install and hopefully with no errors, which is something that we all strive for, right? The agenda for today will be setting up a styles tab for your own team to use. You either as the manager or as the lead of the group can set the styles up for your team and give to each one of them appropriately, using favorites for electrical blocks and saving as a favorite for reuse, drawing dimensions on appropriate views to turn off or on, tagging typicals or tagging floors on your drawings, setting up your typical installation sheet, either 11 by 17 or a large plot size, um, drawings for approval, specials on install drawings, something that we all tend to do nowadays. And our favorite word for 2020, COVID-19 plans. Something totally unexpected, but now, as far as designers, we have to draw and set up to give our clients a visible representation of how safe their space can be. Saving all these drawings on this PDF format. And lastly, exporting the CET file into an AutoCAD file for your architect or designer to use. So let's get started. Styles. Styles and setting up your styles actually is easily to do and to change. The text, the lines, the dimensions, text, and lines can all be achieved in CET. And actually setting up your styles is important because it sort of gives that normality of how we used to work before. I know for our for our dealership, come in being so new with CET was how can we make it like how we had it before with AutoCAD? So having a styles editor helps out in a sense that's sort of like your layers and color coordinating all your styles for whatever you may need it as. So for dimension lines, we like to give those in a red color just to make it more visible. For electrical, we tend to use either that color 30 in AutoCAD, which is that orange color. And if there's different dimensions or different line text or stuff like that that just comes across, you're able to edit it here. And the way you can do that is going into your CET file and going into your styles tab here and giving it whatever information you want. So for electrical dimension lines, like I said, we like to use this color, this orange color. So we're able to manipulate some of these lines, save it, and save it globally for other drawings. And once you save it there, then it saves onto your personal computer. And then you could go into that file, which shows up in the location for that file will be in your CET documents and styles folder. And inside there, you'll be able to see all your different styles that you've created, copy, paste it onto your server. And once it's in the server, then everybody on your team is able to copy and paste into their personal computers for reuse. So back to CET, you're able to manipulate anything that you want. So here we have lines. So anything that's going to be an electrical dimension line will be orange. Your dimensions, you could change that as well. Your text, so all your text for electrical will show up in that color. And we like to do this just to differentiate exactly what we're looking at and where we're gonna put stuff at. So I know for just drawing like a dimension line to the center line of your panel, we tend to use just a regular dimension line. But anything that's electrical, then we like to have it in this electrical style. And I cannot stress enough the importance and how easy it is to just save everything locally. I mean, sorry, that's saved, that everything is saved locally to have it saved in another, in, in your server so anybody can use. This will make all your drawings and everything more standardized. Electrical symbol, something that we used to do in AutoCAD. We already had AutoCAD blocks, and in blocks in AutoCAD, putting it into CET would just take a lot of space. It ended up being like an XREF, and I wasn't able to give that color to it to show on our drawings. So the easiest thing for us to do was just to make a basic symbol. I mean, we already used a circle with a C on it for core. So why not make it in CET? And that way, when you make it in CET, you can save it as a favorite. And just gonna go through this very briefly. Just make sure always when you're either doing a dimension or you're creating something to make sure you have the right style. In this case, I'm making the core, so I want to make sure that my circle is an electrical. It's an electrical line. So here you have electrical line style. You could edit this as well if you wanted to do it. You could fill the background if you want to fill this with the same color just to make it easier to read. If you want to put a hatch, any of that. The next thing you do is just put a C on it, make sure that the C for core is also in the right style. And once you have everything set up here, just very easily to do, grab everything, right click, and save as favorite. These favorites that you have saved can be saved and inserted whenever you need to. So all you have to do when you're drawing is right click, insert favorite, and a little pop-up should show up. And wherever you have those favorites, either locally or if it's in a server, then you'll be able to grab it and reuse it wherever you need. In this case, this little guy that we tend to use everywhere is saved as a favorite, put it there. And that's pretty much it. I know there's other ways where you can do this. I know that they already have some saved in here and you're able to reuse those. And the reason why I like this is one, it helps me also get adjusted with, with the tools that we already have in CET, but also being able to draw this out in the right style and the right color. So when I do print this out, it shows up in color. Dimensions. Using the correct dimension style and the right view to turn them on or off when necessary. So when dimensioning, like I said before, make sure your styles are in the correct one that you want. For example, this is for electrical, just make sure it's in electrical. And for me, I like to draw all of my dimensions for electrical in this electrical tab. So if you look down here, you click on that, and the only thing that shows up would be your electrical components. In this case, it being a panel system, your panels will still show up, and your triplex and your data, wherever you placed it, will show up as well. Um, in this case, also, wire baskets are part of that electrical visibility, so it will show up. You could turn these on or off in your visibility settings, something that you can do as well if you don't need it or don't want to. But just for today, we're just leaving them on. So back to drawing dimensions where it's appropriate, make sure your style is set to your dimension and just start dimensioning to where you need to. So here I have a core. Actually, let's put a new core in since we already have a favorite. Let's do that guy there. Give it some time to load. There it goes. Now that we have this guy in the right electrical tab, put this guy and then dimension there. So now we have the right style, the text style and dimension style, and the electrical tab. And you don't have all this other data in the way. You just see exactly what you want to see. And if you go back to your normal mode with all your other components, you'll just see what you just placed there. So you won't see that layer. If you do want to see everything, you could do a view all, which I recommend everybody do every once in a while just to make sure that dimensions aren't overlapping each other. For example, here everything's pretty good. For some reason, here we have two text dimensions. We could just delete one. And now everything's visible. You can see that there's nothing in the way. There's no storage, nothing impeding with that core. And if you just want to go back, click normal, or just revert back to just whatever visibility settings that you have for that. Much more easy to see. Tagging. Tagging for me, once I learned this, was one of the most, it was a pretty awesome thing to learn. One, because there's a lot of information that you can gather from tagging and a lot of information that will help you in your installation drawings. For example, setting up your typicals, your phases, the way you order things, um, the calculations or BOM. You can manage everything, even also if you want to view certain things from whatever you tagged. So I think we've all done some tagging before. Once you do the part tagging, you either click on a new tag or click on an existing one, go on to your 2D, grab the components you want, and it comes tagged. You can also change the color, put on tag 1, tag 2, tag 3. Tagging also is very important when when you're using RevLink, when you're trying to send out a couple of things for a Revit file. It's very important to have there. It's also very important to not have too much tags or else it may tag every single thing. So watch out for that. But going back to the tagging and BOM side of it, you're able to tag whatever typical it is. In my case, I like to tag each workstation as a typical or each private office as a typical. So if we have three of the same typicals, I can copy and paste it and move it around wherever I want. And if I have to change stuff around, if I change one, then it will change all of it. So tagging and making it smart enough to understand what the components are is very important. Let me see. Once you have it tagged in your BOM, you're able to change the settings. So only only whatever you tagged is sorted by that. So for example, I tagged 2A and my BOM, I was able to do another view, an article view, and change the groupings. So only tag 2 shows. So everything that's tagged and in there for tag 2 CL2A, that's what's going to show up. So it only gives me quantities for that particular component, which comes in very handy if you're doing just one BOM for one thing, or if you want to do kind of also like a reconfiguration as well. If you want to just reconfigure part of this, tag the part that's going to be new, the other part's old, and oops, then you're able to do that as well. And tags is also part of one of these view modes here. So once you click there, you're able to see all the ones that you have tagged. So here's tag 2A, CL4, 2B, and it just makes things easy to read. All right, so install sheets. All this stuff that we talked about before kind of sets you up for your install sheets. Uh, your styles, making sure that everything's on the right style, your dimensions, your tagging. Tagging is very crucial um, because you can have some settings in there that you're able to gather information and extrapolate it from there. So for example, since this is a panel system and I have it tagged, I'm able to get the panel types from a manufacturer and just only show exactly CL2A. If I wanted to show this one, then I only just show that. If I want to show all of them, then I could do that as well. But I like to simplify things and just group things per tag. So I know that all these panels belong to CL2A and all these belong to CL2B. So when I have that information, I'm able to just use what I need. And then you could also do a finish summary for that particular typical as well that was tagged. And then from there, actually able to grab the data, use the data from CET, the finishes that were imported to CET, so they can visually see exactly what they have. So for my install sheets, I have, if it's a panel system, it's going to depend. If it's a panel, benching system, private office, I think your viewports typically change and you draw it per that drawing, per that typical, per that client. It could be anything. And one of the great things about this, oops, one of the great things about the new CET is that you're able to edit all that stuff. So for me, a typical install drawing looks like this. And this is just a typical panel plan. So you'll have a 3D rendering components plan, which shows anything from your stiffeners, your work surfaces, anything that you may need. For example, the stiffener wasn't showing up, at least the text or the description. So I like to put it as a short text or a leader line. The cable basket, I know it showed up in my electrical, but it just didn't really make sense there. So I turned it off the electrical plan, and I had to draw a box in here just to describe where the cable box is going to, cable basket is going to go. For the electrical plan, sometimes people don't have an iPad or something where you could zoom in to the circuit. So I like to put a text and color to show exactly what circuit number it is, just to make it easy for the guys or whoever's out there, just to make sure that, this is circuit 1, circuit 2, 3, and 4, and also call it out, not just put a 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. That may be more confusing than helpful. And something I did that I like to do a lot is use a lot of color. For me, visually seeing something tells a lot more than going through the hassle of writing it out. So if I'm able to color coordinate things and make it easy for everybody to kind of notice and also get, is important. So I know for this particular tag, there's a panel type M, which when you look at the panel plan, it's kind of hard to even distinguish which one's M because it has MN and 6P3. So at least for me, even trying to figure out the manufacturer or even trying to figure out how each component works, I had to color coordinate it for my own self. So I know this is panel M, that's yellow. So I came down here and I was like, all right, well, M, okay, so that goes there. So I color coordinate the yellow ones there and there. And all it is just using a rectangle and adding a background and then either copy or paste it wherever you want and being able to just reference exactly the elevation and where it is. I can't stress enough for me how important just visually seeing one component in one view and viewing it in a different view means to me. Being able to showcase that that belongs with this, and then there's 4, and making sure that there's 4 of them. And like I said, this is where the importance of tagging your typicals come in. Because once you tag this, CET already knows how many panels you have, and also the finish, and also the heights and all of that. So having that information literally one click away is awesome. One of the things that I like also about the new viewports or the view clips is being able to turn stuff not really on or off, but being able to move stuff around. So I double clicked inside the viewport and now we're in here. So you know that whatever's inside this bounding box is what's going to be visible in your paper space. And I do tend to move stuff around because normally if I just have a viewport and I just say I put it on here, then all this text that tends to like move into one another. So it takes a little time, but in the long run, it's very helpful. And I know it's crucial for our crew to see the description and part number. So I tend to move stuff around here, there, still keeping it within where it's going to be. If I have to move stuff around further or out of the way, then I call it out. But if, for example, like this guy and on the last class, they asked us the same question, like, well, if you have a lot of stuff kind of interfering, what do you do? Well, one is move it. But in this case, if you already have two of the same thing and it's visually represented like these, like this, then I don't really need this. You can just move this outside, and now it's not in your view in your box, and you just have one. And just to make things easier for people to see, move this guy out of the way, and all you see that. So moving stuff around, very important, and being able to do that manually is it's going to take some time, and maybe that's something that we just have to get used to. But at least having the opportunity to move stuff around is great. So now we go back to to here, and now we just have one. So ZUBF, the installation team should have a BOM handy, or even the project manager should have it handy. They should know what it is, or if you try to help them out a little bit, call it out. Flat brackets. Boom, there, done. And the important thing about all of this is having your visibility settings set up where you only have 3, 4 per, uh, let's say per, like if it's a panel system or if it's a benching system. Each one of those is going to be different, just because depending on your manufacturer, sometimes some view settings are either different or they're the same, or they're just all in different locations. And once you click on here and having your visibility settings, you bring up your default view modes. Default view mode, you can click on any one of these and it's going to change the way things look. So let's bring a new one in. So let's click there. It's going to prompt me to go here. Let's get that guy. So now it looks like this. So if I click on my visibility settings, you can click on anything you want, and that's what's going to show up. So electrical, that, don't really want that. I want this electrical because it shows your panel. And remember how we saved the visibility set on our tab, how we saved it in electrical. Now we show your core and your dimensions. So you're able to see all of that information just going into that default view mode. How we talked about on this one, I started off with that same default view mode, but you start editing stuff or save as, add it, and then you edit stuff that you don't want. So you start going in there and start editing information that you may not need. So for this guy, I started off with that same view mode, but I went in there and dug in a little deeper and took away that cable basket because it just looked a little silly having it here instead of where your components are. And that's stuff that you have to maneuver within your manufacturing and within, particular product. So visibility settings, being able to set that up is important. once you set one up, for instance, this guy here, I have it as a components plan, save it, and save this one as your electrical, save this one as your panel. And once you have it saved, you can load it. So for me, I have a few for composed panels, and then I have a few for planes, which is like a benching system. And then I have one for like a private office. And then just being able to share that information with your teammates is important. That way everybody has the same information. Um, so once we have this set up, I like to print it out, send it send it to my project manager, and just ask her or ask him, hey, is this okay? Is this information either good enough, or do you need some more, or do you want me to add a certain view? Sometimes they want to see how a certain part is attached, so maybe a new rendering where it's the bottom view of the work surface, stuff like that. So I tend to give that out to them and just be like, hey, is this okay? If that's fine, if we already had discussed this beforehand and everything's fine, then we can just right click, copy paper, and this sheet will be copied. Or if you want to take this a step further and you already know that these are the three visibility view modes that you want, and the rendering is going to go there and this goes there, then you can save this as a reusable file. So save paper, and once you save it either it's going to be saved locally, or you could save it into your and then save it onto your server. But it really helps other other drawings. Once you have this as a reusable file, you right click, load paper, and save it as install page. For this, you can save it as install page panels. You can save it as install page private offices, whatever you want, whatever makes sense for you. Open it, and now this little guy opens up. This guy stayed the way it is because that's the only rendering I have. But the cool thing about this reusable file is that, remember, all those visibility settings is they still show up. So go back in, and that same visibility setting where it just shows components shows up. Now you still have to go in here and manually move all this stuff, but at least setting up visibility and being able to just set up the stuff that you need is done for you. Same thing with this guy. This is the electrical plan, so only your electrical is going to show up. And there it is. And panel plan. So CET makes it very easy for everybody to have the same content, whether it's styles, whether it's the visibility settings, whether it's the sheets that you use. You can make it as cookie cutter as you want and as easy as you want, and then give it to your teammate next to you, and they'll have the same thing. If they want to add or delete some things, then all they'll have to do is go into visibility settings and edit that one and save it as a different name. Sometimes you'll have to do that anyways because maybe there's something different or it's just something unique. So remember, having a reusable drawing saves time if you already have it. If you don't, then you have this guy, copy, paper, and then everything that's in here will be saved on to the next one. So for example, all this, the text, will be there. I mean, you could essentially save this guy as also as a reusable file, and then this, the leader lines and all this text would still be saved onto there, and you could do that as well. So we talked about just adding some color, making things visible, being able to showcase stuff that you're not able to see. This handy dandy tool that the CET installed is pretty neat. It's something that we wanted to from the very start, just because it kind of it was it's our design standard of having everything in black and white, but the only thing that shows up in color would be dimensions and say leader lines or stuff like that. And that's something that we struggled with, and my team wanted to have, because that's something that we were used to in AutoCAD. And also that's something that our client liked also, just being able to have things in black and white, and then your dimension lines would show up in color or anything important. So now having that new tool where you can make the viewport in black and white, click on that. And it sometimes becomes very finicky. You have to be cautious. Once you click on that, kind of move your mouse or hit escape, and this green help button shows up. Once you click on that filter button here, you'll get this filter dialog box, and scroll down, go to installation, markup, click on that, and now your drawing will show the installation or markups dimensions in red or color or whatever styles you saved it as. Oops. So let's see. I got this to work, and sometimes it could be very finicky. My AutoCAD's been on. Sorry, my CET's been on the whole day, so maybe it's a little tired, but let's see what it can do. So have a typical drawing. Let's change this back. Actually, let's move it back. So here we have our text. It's in that styles for our electrical dimension. But we just want to show everything in black and white and just that in color. So we come here, click it, see how everything turned black and white. Now let's try this one time. There we go. So like I said, it could be the escape or just moving your mouse outside to cancel that particular, just canceling out the black and white option. And you get this little guy right here. Click on filter, that brings up there. And then click this guy, click there, and everything stays in black and white except for your dimension lines or anything that you have in that layer. So, like I said in the beginning, making our own electrical blocks was very crucial for me, in particular because I wanted to show this guy in color. This is why I did it that way. I know there's different routes, and I think everybody has their own technique, and I think that's great. I think that shows how creative we can all be and how awesome the program is, that it's not set in one way. We're all able to be different, and the program notices that, and we're able to learn different ways. But this is why I like using that that favorite and that color. So now when I print, that will show in color, and I'm able to see that in my drawings. So, like I said, once once we figured this out, it was an amazing. It felt great, at least for me, being kind of a little nerdy at sometimes. It's just finding stuff out is very it's very good. And I once I showed it to the team, I think they couldn't shut me up about it, but it proved that we can move a whole project from start to finish in CET, and we didn't really have to go back and forth between AutoCAD, which was something that we had to do, particular because of this, because we wanted the dimensions to be in color and our drawings to be readable in that sense. So once we figured it out that we are able to do this, especially with the new update, it really changed the game for us. Now we're able to do this, and we can move forward. Before, I think the other way we used to do this was copy and paste your viewport. So you copy this viewport and then change the settings so it only showed the dimensions, and then layer that on top of the black and white that you had done before, which it worked, but it was an extra step. I think doing this once, hopefully, it's just a little. Sometimes it just gets, sometimes the button just kind of either hides or just kind of gets a little restless. Once it starts working fine, then it will be great. Let's see. So yeah, once you have that, then you can plot it, and you can see here that everything for my panel plan, anything that's everything's in black and white. I mean, in this case, you can still keep this in color, but I know when you're plotting stuff, it's cheaper to print in black and white than in color, right? So doing that helps you there. Drawings for approval. Drawings for approval I use in a variety of ways. The first way that I use it is sort of like a spec check. Won't go too much detail onto spec check, but I know there's another class that's going to do a great job doing this. I'm looking forward to viewing it too and learn more tricks. But drawings for approval is some drawings that we send out to the sales team, and it's just basically a 2D drawing with your 3D rendering. And remember how tagging helps out? You can get the materials from each tag, importing that in your drawing as well. And you don't really need to send this out for a client approval, but maybe just for your sales team, just to review the finishes, making sure that the finishes are on there correctly. Even for yourself, when you're spec checking, have this on there. And also for when you're installing, you could have this on there as well if you just want to have just quantities. But drawings for approval, you already have the drawing already kind of set up. It's just adding some of these things on there so we can all view it together and make sure that your typical is done correctly. So how you get your BOM and stuff like that would be something like this. So here you go. It's the same drawing, but you have your 2D, your rendering, and then out here, I know it's blacked out, but when you when you PDF it, the black will be a shadow, and then your image will show up. And then this is just basically an article view that you insert into here, and you're able to just once you put the article view in here, you will be able to just switch it and show exactly what you need. So since we already tagged this as a CL2A, you'll be able to just go back and forth and go from CL2 to when you put your next page for a CL4A or whatever it may be, you're able to toggle on and off. So there's no need to like have a different drawing. I mean, sorry, have a have a sheet from a different say Excel or project spec and print it out and put it in here. You already have this from your calculations. Drawings with specials, something we all do, something that I know for the two dealerships that I worked with, we're very notorious for specials. We we all want to create something similar, not necessarily copy, but create something similar that another manufacturer has and improve upon it. And that's when specials come into play. And specials for install drawings are very important in the sense that we don't really, sometimes we don't get a lot of information from the manufacturer to help the installation team put it together. So it usually starts off as a sketch from us, and then that sketch goes to the specials team of whatever manufacturer you have, and then they'll either create a 3D or and 2D for you, or you already have the 3D created so you can reuse your own and import into CET. And one of the things that I like about CET is the integration of SketchUp. You're able to import 3D drawings that maybe your manufacturer gave you as a CAD file, or you're able to go into different manufacturers and download their their SketchUp files and import it into CET. And between the two, I think between the two ways of either importing it as a DWG or SketchUp, I usually stick with SketchUp. At least for me, it ends up saving more time, and also I'm able to manipulate it much more easily. I know in AutoCAD, when you bring it in to CET, it sort of ends up looking like a background. So it takes up a lot of my computer, it just takes up a lot of the memory, I guess, and it bogs it down. But anyways, drawings and specials and installation. Like I said before, I love using color, love the representation of where different things go and where they belong, and anything that will catch, you know, the installation team's eye. I'm all for it. If if this yellow, they're able to see it and represent it more than this 3D rendering, then awesome. I would like to call things out as well. So, for example, this yellow is this gallery panel, which is TS003HMV. I have it called out there. Called out that we'll need special blocking for Z-clips or cleats in these locations. And some of this information, it's either for the install team and also for the contractors to look at and architects to look at. And all this information is just to make our project work smoothly between different groups. We want the contractor to have information on how to deal with our install and our furniture, and we want them to see how things are going to be installed. A lot of the contractors are they just want a heads up and make sure that their brand new wall that they worked hard on putting up isn't going to be damaged. And if it's going to be, if we want to put holes in it, this is where we want it, and this is why. So the more information we give all our team, then the better it is for the installation at the end of the day. Uh, Something I touched on the SketchUp, you're able to bring it in and also put in like a catalog number. So, for instance, this guy came in as a SketchUp model, and you can right click, and I inserted this part number in there. So when I do get my BOMs, it makes it smart enough so it picks up that gallery panel, and now my BOM it shows this guy. So now I'm able to put in the list price and a description, and you don't have to work twice as hard putting it into either if you have project matrix or project spec or worksheet. And COVID plans. Just going to touch a little on this. I know this became the norm as of this year. So I think as designers, we have to be more conscious of exactly how we're putting people together and how we're designing space. It's used to be the as of probably like last year, social spaces and everybody becoming more together, more closer together was our number one goal. The freedom to be able to go to your workmate, turning around and say hi at probably close proximity was a norm, you know. But now with these new regulations and being able to and I mean and having to be separated, not necessarily by choice, but by health, has become our job. And so how we dealt with COVID plans was a 2D circle. And once again, you could build your style and call that style COVID circle or COVID 6 feet or whatever you want. And then save it, save that as a favorite again. And you have that saved. So whenever you were doing a COVID plan, you'll have that circle and you're able to put it wherever you fit needed and show your client exactly how many stations need to be modified and or come give them a plan about day one, day two use. So for example, depending where you're at, if the two bubbles are interjecting a lot, then that just means that you're not able to work there. There's your personal spaces will not work. And as far as installation drawings, this is becoming sort of the norm in some instances because we have to show the client exactly how many stations we were able to put down as day one or day two. And for installation purposes, this may help us out because, say, this monitor arm is missing from day one, but another monitor arm for day two is somewhere around here, and we know that those people won't be there till the next following week, and your monitor arm is going to be there next following week, then we can grab that guy. Um, and that's just something, just something to talk about when you're installing stuff. But it it's it is changing the way we design as well. And I know some manufacturers, I know, have built sort of a COVID tool to help us with this. And it's really great. I know Hayworth has one, and I think they do a really good job how they present it. So that's that's what I have for COVID. Oops, saving drawings. So we have all our drawings saved up. We have everything that we need. It's time to just PDF everything and send it out to the team. And that is very simple. Make sure that all the ones that you want are visible. Oops. So make sure that all the drawings that you have are visible and you're able to, if you don't want a certain drawing, then, disable it. If you want all of them, click all of them. But I'm not going to go into too much detail. I think this is pretty much easy. Just create PDF and you're able to easily do a drawing set that you can give to your project management team and they're able to review. So it'll be something like this, something simple where you start off with your panel plan in a large format, your electrical plan, which can be the same thing. It's just showing exactly where your cores are going to go, dimensioning that, and then going through your typicals. There's an 11 by 17 drawing, and then just going through the typical as many as you have. And last but not least, exporting the CT drawing for into a DWG drawing for your architect and or designer. Um, so when you go to File, Import, Export Drawing, and one of the things that I found out is that you have to click on this filter button. And for me, the setting that works is this print. And let me show you guys why. Also, when you export, uh, I tend to just click on the 2D view. 3D view would just, I don't normally use it just if I have to share a 3D model. But more recently, the 3D models that I've been sharing is Revit files. I don't know if you guys been getting a lot of Revit file sharing as well, but that's when Revit Link comes in handy and you're able to do that. But other than that, sometimes with 3D, exporting a 3D is when we're sending our 3D models as an offsite renderer. So back to here. So remember how I like to save all of my things in these different tabs. So for example, here, no normal view, it'll just be there. But if I put all my electrical tabs, if I put all the electrical stuff in here, then I'm not able to see, I won't be able to see the other stuff. So it's very important that you guys click down here on view all, and you're able to see every single thing. You get to see every single one of these guys pretty much open. So now you can see exactly where that core is, if there's anything in the way, and just be in the habit of clicking that view all button when you're doing Zapple cores. And so, well, the reason why I say that is because when you export it, if you go back to that print, all of these layers will show up. And the last thing you want is to give an AutoCAD file where all the dimensions are kind of in the way of each other. So if, say, you had it there and you didn't notice and you sent it out and now you have it in AutoCAD and it looks like this, and you can't really move these dimensions in AutoCAD, so you have to re-import, or I mean re-export, and it just becomes a hassle. So what I like to do is just click on View All and just make sure that everything is correctly placed, not in the way of things. And if there are things in the way, either move them or delete them. For example, like this guy, just delete. And you're able to move around freely without stuff interrupting each other. So if you go back to export, file export drawing, if export it, click on filter, filter settings, view modes, you can do print. And once you click on print, then everything will show up like that. And your AutoCAD drawing should have everything that you have it there. So more in a sense, it'll look like this guy. See how you have the dimension for electrical and also the dimensions for just a regular um, regular purpose. And once you do all that, have your PDFs handy, have your BOMs handy, uh, team meeting between your sales team and your project management team. And if you're able to have your installation team there, recommend that as well. I know in different dealership I worked in, we had the installation team within our dealership. So me personally, it was a great thing to have because you get to interact with them and you get to see and understand what they need. Because sometimes they'll be like, "Yeah, it's too much information. All I needed was simple 2D drawing. There's no sense to get fancy." And to their point, it's like, well, all right, just let me know. And for us, it's helpful because it shaves off time and energy where we can be spending it on other things, other drawings that maybe need more attention, and it helps us out a lot. So those team meetings that you have with the installation team, with your project management team, sales team, more than ever, especially now since we're not able to all meet together in the same building, is crucial. And being able to have as much information on your drawings as possible is also very, very helpful. So I cannot stress enough how much of a importance team meeting is. And that is all for me. Is there any questions?
Right. Well, we don't have much time. I think we already went over, but I do have Sandra who has asked if you can show the COVID plan again.
Yeah.
So that is pretty much the only question that we have.
Where'd it go? So
Well, I
COVID,
think maybe you're on the presentation. Is that
yeah,
correct, maybe, Sandra?
there you go. So this is sort of what we have, and this is one of the tools that our manufacturer has. So anything that's in green means that you're able to, to use. And once you get to the yellow and red, then that means that you have to break apart or make space. So, like I said, our manufacturer did an amazing job at at giving us this tool that it made it easy for us because before we had to manually draw it in almost the same way as how as I showed you guys drawing these blocks. So it would just be using a circle that's 6 feet apart and putting it in the right style, and then saving it as a favorite, and then just putting it in wherever the chair landed. Now with this, you could also fill it in as whatever color you want, so it makes things easier. But the way that our manufacturer did it is that it takes the guesswork out. It does it manually, and I cannot honestly be happier that they did this because it saves a lot of time. So hopefully that answered that question.
It did. Awesome. Well, that is all the time that we have for today, guys. So that is going to wrap up day one of CT Experience. So thank you so much, Cesar, and thank you everyone else for participating, and hope to see you guys later this week.
Thank you all.